All right, check, folks. The fact of the matter is that Jill STein, I've dealt with the crew before, and unless I'm wrong, they've actually already pre-banned every single one of my accounts. They work together, actually. So we're going to show a level of collusion. It's possible they didn't, but they probably did.
Peace will rally around so we can hit that threshold of 5% in the national vote this general election come November.
Thank you so much. And I want to piggyback on that to encourage people to, consider the sky the limit in this election. There's every reason for us to expect the unexpected in this election. There are going to be 4 pro-genocide candidates: Trump, Biden, no labels, and RFK. They could wind up splitting the corporate genocide pro-war vote. We're on track right now to be the only campaign on the ballot across the country to truly challenge empire, to truly contest for power. You have to be on the ballot across the country in order to do that. Otherwise, you'll have a powerful symbolic voice, and that's great, but you're not actually contesting for power. Right now, we are the only such campaign, which is pro-worker, anti-war, anti-genocide, and climate emergency. We're the only such campaign which is headed for ballot access across the whole country. We currently are 3/4 of the way there. If you add up all the signatures that you need, it's about 1 million signatures across the country. 3/4 of that work has already been done, largely thanks to the state parties. Big shout out for all the state parties that have been working on this and watchdogging this actually for years. That's why we are where we are right now. We're continuing that battle. Most of it is behind us, which is incredible. RFK, for all his talk, for all the big money that he's got in his super PAC, he's on the ballot right now in like 4 states, I think. 4. We're on in 21, but that includes some of the most expensive.
Okay, what probably happens is they probably banned me so that other people can't see it. They probably pre-did it. We're about to see. It's loading now. Usually when it doesn't load, that's because they've been banned. Now the thing is that Jill STein can see what I'm writing, because I've actually operated my own live streams, and she can see what I'm writing, but she can also cover it or keep it like masked. They probably pre-banned all my accounts. They've been sharing notes. Trust me, shoot with the gatekeepers, 100%. Yeah, I've been trying to get this issue addressed for a long ass time. Oh my god, it stayed up there, yeah? Okay. Some of the messages seem to have been, some of the messages were deleted. Is that true? I had more posts than that. I'm the New York City Cruise. Oh, okay. Let's go back and see, yeah? Let's go back into my account over here. When's the last time Jill STein helped a poor person? I want to know. Okay, I also want to show you guys that this group, right, these progressives, they don't actually care about you. You know what I mean? Even though these are serious claims here that I'm making here, They're just going to ignore what I have to say. I have a lot of receipts.
But it could easily be a winning percentage. When you have 5 candidates, the 4 pro-war candidates, and us, that's 5 candidates. If they're dividing up the vote, it's possible mathematically to actually win the race with as little as 21% of the vote. That's not to say that's necessarily how it's going to turn out, but a plurality, which is getting the largest chunk, can win the vote. It's not like we have to get to 51%. So I really want people to just think in terms of
Katie Halper, Jimmy Dore, George Galloway. I don't know about Napolitano, but I know that that's definitely the gatekeepers. Have been destroyed. Myself and Deck Row, and many others. She marks herself as a solution. Doing the work. Money off our separately. That's right. Where's Christina Khalil? I want to know. Yeah. Lies and abuse. Okay, let's see if I'm banned yet. I'm probably shadow banned. That's how they do it, right? Yeah.
Change the outcome of this election by having the record highest turnout for third party. And we can do it. We just have to make sure that we are bold, brave, and unafraid. And I think that it will be behind us if they see a pathway for victory. They see a way that they're going to be empowered, because normally they're disappointed, because most of these politicians, they campaign in what they say in poetry, and they govern in prose, and so that's where we have that constant disappointment, you know. But and talk about disappointment. How many people were disappointed in Barack Obama? You know, how in fact there was people who voted for Barack Obama twice and then turned around and voted for Trump. No one's really talking about that. That's a pretty weird dynamic there. And I submit that Michael, what's our brother from Fahrenheit 9/11, Michael Moore, Michael Moore, he kind of gave a great explanation for that. These are just people who are simply looking for change. They, at the time, they thought Barack Obama was a symbol of change, and then at the time they thought Trump was going to drain the swamp. You know, these weren't the races that stormed the Capitol. These were a very weird dynamic. That's going to be very interesting to see what happens in this election. But I think that you have the wind beneath your wings. I think that we're on the right side of history. I think this ongoing genocide has shaken up a lot of people who otherwise would have been sitting on the fence or sitting it out, as they say. And I think this is going to give them the motivation to do something.
I couldn't agree more. You know, in our recent 3-week tour of whatever it was, 10 states, I don't recall the exact number, 21 cities. We went a lot of places. We were in real red territory. We were in Kentucky. We were in Ohio and East Palestine, and in the most unlikely places when you wouldn't have thought there was a strong anti-genocide movement. It was that was about the strongest thing out there. It's bringing all kinds of people into the fight. We were at a mosque recently in Baltimore, and we were seated. This was for a Ramadan iftar, breaking of the fast, and we were seated at a table with some political operatives. We were sort of at the political table, and there were some staffers there for some Democratic elected officials, and they were telling us in confidence that it's over for them, that they cannot bring themselves, even as staffers for Democrats, they cannot bring themselves to actually vote for Biden because of genocide. So, you know, it's out there, and people are not going to take this sitting down, and it is a transformative moment. You know, Gaza is a microcosm of American militarism. Ronald Reagan's Secretary of Defense, Caspar Weinberger, described Israel as the unsinkable battleship for the Middle East, and, you know, namely to give the U.S. control over Middle Eastern oil. We needed it back in the 1980s. We don't need it now. We're the major exporter of fossil fuels around the world, thanks to Barack Obama and Joe Biden, who elevated us on that. And so we are here trying to mobilize people, and people are coming out, and they get it, that this is just not going to solve itself. And there's so many reasons now why people are standing up to fight. So Reagan is saying, you know, that Israel is the unsinkable battleship, and people widely now are standing up to fight that, because the U.S. empire demands to have control. And while we were controlling the fossil fuel supply for our own sake back in the 80s, now we don't need that oil anymore. And we're controlling it because that's just what we do. We control the fuel that other nations need. So we are seizing upon Israel as our continuing battleship. And this is a disaster.
Absolutely.
The U.S. has been conducting war after war, which has been catastrophic. According to the Brown University Cost of War Project, we have killed somewhere between 4 and 6 million people in the post 9/11 wars. So Gaza is a horrific genocide, but it comes after a long line of outrageous killings, whether you call them genocide or just, you know, civilians in the line of fire. These are wars that are completely unjustified and, you know, outrageous, are really pure exercise of militarism and global domination. And they've got to be stopped. Our position in the world now is extremely untenable. We have 3 points of conflict, at least. just to look at Ukraine and China and Gaza, which could blow up on us because we are bombing 4 countries and we are also bombing Iranian targets. So you put that all together. Iran is now allied with Russia in a military pact. So this is like pre-World War I, but with nuclear weapons thrown into the mix. So this could, this could arguably blow up on us. It's not just Gaza in the target hairs. Israel is severely in the target hairs and becoming a complete pariah, mobilizing its neighbors against it. And because this is potentially go nuclear, we are all in the target hairs of this. So just to make the point that there is a transition that has to happen now. This is both about stopping genocide, but it's also about stopping empire and the oligarchy that goes with it. And again, referencing Martin Luther King, militarism, racism, and extreme materialism, aka capitalism now in its end stages, they all go together. And we need a system change. We're not going to fix this around the margins, and that's what we've always been about here in the Green Party. And I just really want people to have the courage of their convictions and to remember that there is no lesser evil. We've got 2 greater evil parties right now, and those are the other choices. It's our job to get on with the greater good. Forget the lesser evil. Let's go for the greater good. That's like our only way out of here alive for ourselves, for all humanity. So just, really thanking everybody for leading us to this perfect storm now for absolutely transformative change, and having people like Kimon Freeman in the mix here is just so wonderful. And I have to say, we're seeing incredible Green Party candidates at all levels, but particularly at the level of Congress, that are standing up to fight this fight. It's just really a wonder to behold.
Yeah, and even your campaign manager, Jason Carl, want to shout him out because he's rising to the occasion as well. I hope that you guys can save the transcript of the chats, because the chats are lit right now. So I've been, so if you see my eyes averted, because I'm seeing some of the comments in the chats, and I really appreciate a lot of it. I wanted to respond to a couple of them. Someone was talking about how the mainstream media will continue to ignore you. My mentor was Kevin Z. Someone else in the chat said, "Hey, I remember you working for Ralph Nader back in 2004." And I'm like, "Yeah, I actually did." So I actually started working for Ralph Nader, and Kevin Zeese got me that gig. I was a spokesperson for him in New York City. I was a crime buster driving vehicles around. And after that campaign, Kevin Zeese ran for the Maryland Senate, U.S. Senate for Maryland. Ben Cardin won that. Michael Steele and Ben Cardin was the candidates for that. And Michael Steele, the Republican candidate, allowed Zeese to participate in the debates because he thought that would help him by shaving votes from Ben Cardin. And so they would have debates, and the media would completely ignore Kevin Zeese's presence in those debates. But the Washington Post took a picture, and they cropped it so only you have Michael Steele and Ben Cardin. But Kevin Zeese wisely inserted himself by throwing his arm into the picture. So it's 2 candidates with 5 arms. So they had to identify the 5th arm, And so I think that we have to identify our 5th arm, which is independent media. And the mainstream media is no longer the only store in town, because the cat's out the bag. The technology has really democratized the flow of information. And that's why they're trying to reel us back. That's why the FCC tried to create a toll roll for social media and the free flowing of internet access. That's why we have the algorithms, but they can't stop it. That's why they're trying to ban TikTok, but they can't stop it. And so I think that we're looking at, like you said, late stage capitalism. I think that's applicable also to our corporate media. Like NBC is bracing for the backlash, to the backlash of hiring and firing the RNC Republican chairman and election denier, And so I don't think people are really putting the validity behind the corporate media as much anymore. We need to see us convalescing around independent media outlets. For example, like it's not just you going to be missed out in the mainstream media, but South Africa's Foreign Minister Dr. Nadia Pandor, who sat down with Mehdi Hassan. I hope I'm not butchering these names. On his new independent media outlet, Zeto. See her. I haven't seen her on CNN. I haven't seen her on MSNBC. I've heard of attacked by mainstream media, but I haven't seen her speak on mainstream media. So here's the foreign minister of South Africa who's taking Israel before the international court with charges of genocide, and and you would think that a former apartheid state would know something about apartheid, you know. So for that to be missing in mainstream media just goes to further devalidate the whole premise that they know what's best. We are breaking this parental relationship where they tell us, they march out who they approve of. Because in fact, in Washington, D.C., having an endorsement by the Washington Post is not actually a good thing locally. A candidate gets the Washington Post endorsement is not a good look for voters in D.C. They're looking at you sideways with that. And so I think we are changing, as I keep saying, you know, our campaign slogan, a revolution of values. I think we are creating a different value system. And I love what you said. You said that no more the lesser two evils, we're going for the greater good. That should be a hip-hop quote right there. No more the lesser two evils, but we're going to go for the greater good. And so hopefully we will see indie media getting behind these campaigns and getting behind the challenges that we're putting forth here today.
Yeah, I love it. And talking about, you know, mainstream media and the farce, the sham, you know, that people don't buy into. You know, if you get an endorsement for the Washington Post, that's a bad thing. Well, it's like, you know, the American public now, on polls, people say, the majority, in fact, now say that what mainstream media says, they assume is false, that mainstream media is purposely misleading us and purposely lying to us. And that's kind of true, you know. If it's important, they're probably lying about it, you know, and they're keeping good news from us, and, you know, they're just manipulating and distorting things and basically protecting power, because that's what journalism is nowadays. It's lapdog journalism. Journalism is supposed to be watchdog journalism. That's why we have a First Amendment and freedom of the press and freedom of the speech. And we rely on press, especially to watchdog foreign policy, because how are you supposed to see what's going on there? So anyhow, you know, let them go ahead and smear us and ignore us, because they've now kind of become public enemy number one. That is, mainstream media is kind of public enemy number one. So let them smear us and, you know, kind of elevate our stature by being smeared by them. And last thing I want to say here is just kind of the joke that the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, now has announced that they will be purposefully smearing us, and they will also be trying to, quote, complicate our ballot access campaigns. They've hired an army of lawyers, an army of corporate lawyers. You know, that's how the Democratic Party is protecting democracy, by hiring an army of corporate lawyers to throw their competition off the ballot. So
they did to Bernie.
What's that?
Look what they did to Bernie.
Yeah, exactly. Rigging their own elections, suppressing their debates. It's a joke. So we have a job to do here, you know, to fulfill the promise of our democracy, which has never been fulfilled, but it's really in the tank right now. So we got a job to do. It's a really great time to do it, and no better team to be doing it with than all of us who are here tonight. And thank you so much. Come on, I see Jason coming on. Are you?
I am.
Jump in.
This is a wonderful segue. And I think I was going to bring this up about what the DNC is threatening us with. They are putting this out in the public unabashedly, that they are willing to kill democracy for, you know, their own purposes, but they say, quote unquote, we're saving democracy because we can't let it fall into Trump's hands. And actually, Jill, before we actually go into the fundraising, there have been some questions in the chat about how do you address, and I think back to, you were on Punch Up Pod last night, and you gave a magnificent answer that I wouldn't be able to do it justice right now. But if we could address right now, before we go into the fundraising ask, how do you talk to people who are in fear of another Trump presidency? What is really at stake right here in 2024? Can you talk about that for just a couple minutes?
There are so many ways to answer this. I could go on for quite a while, so I'll just start going through the litany. And by the way, we have a number of videos about this that are often a good way to kind of just like reference it and kind of develop those talking points yourself, so you can just draw on them. And there are many of them, and different talking points speak to different people. But one of the things we say is that there's no greater trademark of fascism. People are always worried about Trump. Oh, he's the fascist. Yeah, he's very fascist. But actually, so is Biden, and the Democrats. They throw people off the ballot. They have descended deep into big money and dark money. In fact, they rely typically on more dark money. They've gotten very good at the dark money game than the Republicans do. They are criminalizing protests to look at what's going on at Cop City, and there are dozens of cop cities around the country, and they are basically criminalizing protesters, the African American community that's standing up basically to defend its little piece of open space and forest, which is critical for our health and our survival and the clean water and all that. They have been criminalized. They've been leading the fight. And in the effort to put this on the ballot, you have the Democrats. It's a Democratic administration that's fighting this, that's trying to keep it off the ballot. I mean, it's a total joke. It's absolutely outrageous. Leading the fight for censorship. That's been the Democrats leading the charge on that, too. The Republicans aren't far behind. It's, again, how we got two greater evil parties here. But they are all, in the business of assaulting our democracy. And the biggest trademark of any, of fascism is genocide. And there it has been Joe Biden and the Democrats who've been leading the charge into the genocide. And again, Trump is not far behind, but the Democrats led the charge here, and they started it and gave Israel basically the full thumbs up. Go ahead, blank check. So, it's not like, oh, Trump is going to bring fascism, but we're doing just fine. No, we're in complete fascism. And besides, it's been the betrayal of the Democrats that empowered the Republicans. So it's not like we save ourselves by further empowering the Democrats that people vote against by supporting Trump. So it's a very sick and toxic system, and don't let them persuade you that you have to be a part of it. Think of this as an abusive relationship that you have to break up with. People in abusive relationships make excuses for their abusers for a long time, often, and then suddenly wake up and discover, oh my God, I don't have to make excuses for this relationship, which is destroying me, which is hurting me. That's part of it. Another talking point is that no one owns your vote. They have to earn your vote. The biggest demographic out there are the non-voters. It was 100 million people in our last race in 2016, a little bit less than that in 2020. But that is a huge demographic. That's largely where third party, that is grassroots, progressive third party votes, green votes, come from, people who otherwise are going to stay home. So it's not like you can move the vote from one column to another. That's just BS. That's just intended to intimidate you. This is basically a politics of fear, as Kimon said. And where have we gotten with the politics of fear? The politics of fear has delivered everything that we were afraid of. All the reasons you were supposed to vote Democratic, because you wanted health care as a human right, or you wanted to save the climate, or, you didn't want to be going to war with some warmonger. It's the Democrats who are really leading the charge on a lot of this, or they've at least adopted the horrific policies of the Republicans, like on immigration, for example. On climate, Joe Biden has basically promoted and permitted these 22 liquid natural gas export facilities. Why did he do that? Because he created a huge market by destroying the Nord Stream pipeline. So celebration, high fives all around. They blew up this pipeline, and now they can sell all this methane gas. Well, it just so happens, to Europe and replace the Russian gas that we destroyed. But it just so happens that producing this methane gas is like the most toxic things for the environment imaginable. And according to the Sierra Club, these 22 liquid natural gas export facilities moves us back to 2005 climate emissions. So all the progress that's been made for 2 decades is being reversed by Joe Biden right now. Okay, I think that's bigger than anything I have heard of that Trump or anyone else has done. So forget the BS. It's pure BS. It's pure self-serving BS. And I'd say just remember 2 things. Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand. Never has, never will. We got to bring that demand into political discourse. If we don't do it, it ain't happening. And if you allow them to silence you through fear, extorting your vote, whatever, shaming you, if you allow them to silence you, then it doesn't exist. Our demand, our moral compass, our priorities, our agenda, it doesn't exist. So it's not like going along to get along gets you somewhere. It completely removes you from the political process, and that's exactly what they want. So Frederick Douglass is one, and the other one is Alice Walker, who said, the biggest way people give up power is by not knowing we have it to start with. Kimon and I both rely on this on a regular basis. I do every day, you know. We have that power, and we have that power now, and there couldn't be a better, more critical moment to invoke that power and use it. Don't let them try to talk you out of it. Just, you know, eyes on the prize. We are going for success. Whether we win the White House, turn the White House into a greenhouse, which would be great for the whole world, or we just win the day by building a stronger base. Maybe we're 5%, maybe we're 12%, maybe we're 23%, and we win it in a 5-way race. You know, whatever it is a victory. We win by engaging the fight. If we don't engage the fight, it's all over and we've lost.
The door is cracked open, and we just need to put our toe in the door, and we need to lean against that door with everything that we have, because the future relies on us. And so the quote that you said in the middle of that, which is something you've said over and over again, and something that I really want people to take away from, is that voting out of fear has brought us everything that we are afraid of. Both of these corporate war machine and Wall Street parties are pointed in the wrong direction to a greater or lesser degree. We don't even need to compare them. They are simply both pointed in the wrong direction, and our policies are pointed in the right direction. So I am now going to speak to the people in the audience. We have 113 people in the audience, and I need you to understand the critical fight that is ahead of us right now, immediately, right now, in a very don't delay way. We have to raise, I'm going to put some big numbers out there. We need to raise $30,000 over the next few days. We have to do that because, as Jill said earlier, we have to make some down payments so that we can get people on the ground in Indiana to collect the 37,000 signatures. Now, that's 37,000 signatures that are valid that we need to turn in, and we have a goal of collecting close to double that. Typically, when petitions get turned in, a lot of signatures come from people who are not registered to vote, or they haven't put down the correct address, or they, you know, for any number of reasons, a signature might get knocked off. So typical pass rates of signatures is about 60%. That means for every 100 signatures you collect, 60 are we could probably consider to be good. Okay, so 37,000 valid signatures means probably around 60,000 signatures that we need to collect on paper. It is a massive lift. We would love for volunteers to do all of that lifting for us out of the goodness of their hearts, but the people who are out there collecting signatures, they have families, they have jobs. It's not that easy all the time to go out and we want people to step up and do that work. But the reality is we are going to have to pay people to collect signatures for us if we wanna hit that mark, and that costs money. So the $30,000 that we need to raise over the next 4 days is going to be our down payment for the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we are going to need to pay for signature gathering all the way through April and May. In fact, we have a target of raising $1 million+ by the end of May, but we need to start doing it right now. So what does that mean? What is $1 million right now? That is at the federal maximum primary contribution of $3,300. That's 300 people giving a max out contribution. So our big ask right now for anybody listening in the audience who thinks that now is the moment and this is our fight, because I'm telling you it is now. I want you to think, if you can give $3,300 for us to put that down payment on Indiana ballot access. Right now we are on a 50-state strategy to win. We want to keep that going, but the money is needed. Can you give $3,300 right now? Because you know this is the time, this is the moment. We've gotta climb that wall. Anybody in the audience right now, I'm going to shout out your name if you can do it. $3,300 is a max out contribution. We are looking overall with all of our messaging, with this live stream, with the emails that we're putting out, with some phone calls that we're making. We need 300 people to step up over the next, 6 to 8 weeks to give us that maximum contribution of $3,300. Anybody right now in our listening audience can give $3,300. We will take whatever you can give. Believe me, if you shout out a number, this is what I'm going to give. We will acknowledge it. We appreciate it. But right now, we are looking for some max out donors. This is the time. This is the moment. $3,300 is what we're asking. I'm going to give it a few minutes. Anybody? Thank you, Jerry, for $250. We're still looking for some max out contributions. I know it's a lot, but if you have it, now is the time to give it. $3,300. We are looking for some max out contributions. All right. 10% of that next month, Jeanette. We appreciate that. $330. Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll take it. It's very important to us, whatever you can give. All right. So Kirk, $250 also. Fantastic. I want to tell you that we have a goal. We have a goal in this fundraiser. I don't think you can do $10,000 or $20,000.
They banned my stuff because I wrote some real fire right there. Yeah. For some reason, it was being allowed to stay up there. Yeah. They probably know I'm live streaming.
More than that. In fact, if you gave us more than that, we'd have to give it back to you.
Okay.
Because we don't want to violate any FEC rules. So
they completely
limit,
yeah. Oh look,
$300 limit. We are looking for that right now. Can anybody? $200 on Friday for Ariel. Appreciate that very much. All right. So I want you guys to know that we have merchandise. We have a wonderful web store. You can buy T-shirts. You can buy hats. You can buy coffee mugs. You can buy buttons and stickers. We have just added some special items in support of peace and justice in Gaza. There's a new poster and a new sticker. And I want you to know, if you go to the web store and you buy, I think we've got them in a bundle pack for $10. You get a poster and a sticker. That the proceeds from that are going to go to UNRWA, the agency, the United Nations agency that is specifically for humanitarian aid in Gaza, has been defunded.
Thanks, Jill.
So this is where we are.
Yeah, look, they completely deleted. They completely deleted all the stuff that I wrote there.
The biggest source of humanitarian aid for Gaza, and so we will be donating all of the profits from the sales of that sticker and poster to UNRWA, UNRWA. We have Amanda Peterson has maxed out to us. Thank you so much. Did I miss anybody else? That is fantastic. Dr. Peterson, thank you so much. Now, you'll notice that Dr. Peterson has actually donated $6,600. So you can donate up front $3,300 for the primary and $3,300 for the general election. We are not allowed to spend the second half of that $3,300 until we get to the general election, but we can put it in a reserve fund and we can spend it once we are past the primary. So I appreciate that so much, Dr. Peterson. Anybody else able to give a max out contribution of $3,300? So I'm gonna pause a little bit. Do we want to do we want to answer another question while we're waiting? I can answer Martina's question on disability and SSI. I'm just kind of looking through the Q&A right there. We have an incredibly strong disability justice platform. I want to talk about our platform for a minute. We are going to be doing a little bit of a website redesign in a couple of weeks. We're transferring platforms, and once we get that new website up, the full platform will be on there. But I guarantee we have an amazingly strong disability justice platform. We support removing the cap from Social Security completely, and all income should be taxed towards Social Security. We need to not let billionaires get away from their responsibility to the community, and that is SSI. So let's see here. Is there going to be a Green Party United States nominating convention? Yes,
I wonder when there
is. So let's talk about the delegates right now. Jill, I'll turn it over to you if you want to talk about how the nominating selection goes, and I'm going to come back to hitting some fundraising a little bit. Go ahead and talk about how the Green Party selects their candidates.
Okay, great. And, we have a really great, news to report there. The bottom line is that we are getting over 90% of the delegates at this point. We have won every single contest. There have been maybe 7 or 8 of them so far. We are about halfway to the number that we need to lock in on the nomination, technically, once we've reached half of the total number of delegates. So we are halfway to that point. And the different state parties.
Andrew posted a few TikToks on Reddit. Some of the clips which. Great job, Andrew. Another white millionaire. They see this. Look at Jason. He's seeing this. You see this, you fuck. You see this, man. Or you know you're doing this. Go ahead, you cornball, motherfucker. Free and equal elections. Exactly. Supports third parties. Exactly. Russell Brand is part of this whole fucking hypocritical bullshit. He's part of this fucking gatekeeper. I don't need recognition. I'm telling you right now, they try to use this fake humility to try to move people like myself out of the way. Don't fall for that shit. The thing is that when I did the first MPP convention, I was not speaking, and I was actually happy with that. I don't want to be engaged in this fake shit, but they want to make sure that certain people are canceled, so certain issues cannot be brought up, so they can maintain the money. Yeah, this humility is weaponized against you for real. being famous. Like, what good is it, right? Yeah? So they can control the messaging. That's what it is.
Before, but Eric is Savvy's producer. I did a podcast live stream with him a couple of days ago. Wonderful guy. And so Eric is framing everything in what we have to demand from our government. And you're right. We have to demand that our government works for us and not works for the rich and powerful. We've had far too much of our government throwing crumbs to the working class, to marginalized communities, while they're giving tax breaks to billionaires. And that's, that's part of what we're about. So there are a number of things that we can do on day one. Just for some inspiration about, well, what is a Stein administration going to get done on day one? I'm going to throw it back to Jill. Jill, how about just two things that we would do on day one that I want to remind people the people in power could do right now, but they are not doing, but a Stein president will do on day one. Jill, what do you think?
Yeah, so first I just want to give a shout out to Dania K, also, I think on YouTube, because this comes through Betsy, that Dania K has contributed $250, and that is awesome. We really thank you. L. King, also coming in through social media here, has contributed $250. So big shout out to both of you. Thank you so much. And before talking about day one, I also just want to say about tonight, it sounds like an impossible thing that we have to raise $1 million. Put this in perspective, RFK has to raise 18 million, he says. Sometimes he says 15, sometimes he says 20. But that's about the cost of what it costs for a regular party that doesn't have a grassroots network and lots of trained up volunteers who are really on fire. So we get a lot, and $1 million is like really pretty reasonable compared to the 20 million that the major party, I shouldn't say major party, but kind of the corporate type candidates have to raise, the parties that don't have a grassroots network. So this is like amazing. And when you break it down, it's not so much. It seems like there's all these signatures we got to get. But yeah, basically we got 3 really tough states, 4 that are kind of bad, if you include Georgia, which is also bad. But it's especially those 3, Illinois, Indiana, and New York, which are very tough. And by focusing on them now, going full bore, these are doable. And the focus tonight, in my view, it's really all about Indiana and raising $30,000. Seems like a lot, but hey, we are well on the way. We're about at 7,000 right now. And we don't have to raise it all tonight, but just by getting the word out and by doing what we can lock in on Indiana. And once we've done that, then we just kind of have these 2 mountains to climb instead of 3 mountains to climb. And it's absolutely doable. And to just put out what kind of things that we can do on day one, some people say, oh, it's going to be so hard. You get into office and then you got to face the Democrats and the Republicans in Congress, and they're not going to cooperate, and it'll be a total stalemate. Well, we have an approach to that. We can talk about our strategy there. Namely, I'll summarize that real quick. For us, the president will not be a commander-in-chief fighting wars all over the world. Our president will be organizer-in-chief and working to help empower everyday people to demand what we deserve from our elected officials. So we're going to talk about holding congressional hearings, about really forcing representatives to hold town hall meetings and so on, so that we can really push the envelope on things that people really want and people will mobilize for. So we have a strategy for that as well, for how we're going to pass Medicare for All. We can pass this. And I think this will be our number one, because it is the low-hanging fruit. it doesn't cost us anything. In fact, it saves us $500 billion a year. So there's absolutely no excuse that we don't have full health care coverage right now, head to toe, cradle to grave, everybody covered. That should happen right now. And we can really push this and force our elected officials to support it and move it. But even short of that, on day one, there's a lot that the president can do, including make Julian Assange a free man, as well as Edward Snowden, as well as Leonard Peltier, and, you know, many of the political prisoners. We can, and what's his name, Drake, the whistleblower about drones, that drones really kill mostly innocent people. He is sitting in, he's sitting in a high security, totally dehumanized, automated prison. Just, it's nuts. These people should be free, and they should be compensated for the time that they have unjustly, had their lives taken away from them. So that happens on day one. Another thing on day one is to declare an environmental emergency, because there is a climate emergency, and the minute we do that, we shut down those LNG plants. The building stops. All pipelines that come to the coasts, those stop as well, because the emergency legislation that the president has the power over include our coasts and offshore. So offshore oil and offshore extraction, that shuts down. I mean, there's so much we can do, not only to shut down fossil fuels, but then also we can unleash hundreds of billions of dollars in emergency funding to begin creating the clean energy, renewable, community-based infrastructure to create the just transition, so that communities that have been relying on fossil fuels, like, along the coasts where there are, and Texas and so on, where so many workers have relied on fossil fuel jobs, we can begin training them and reemploying them in the green economy, in ecological restoration, in shoreline restoration, etc. There's a lot that can be done, in addition to reviving our productive, that instead of being a financialized economy, we become a productive economy once again, and we start creating jobs where we are manufacturing trains, light rail, high-speed rail, inner city. So there's a lot that, there's just a huge amount that can be done on day one.
I'm shocked
not
they
to
didn't have me
mention
banned in the beginning.
cutting off
that
the
means
flow
they may not
of
have my other
weapons,
accounts banned. So
which have to be
we're going to go in with all of them.
authorized through, basically through the president.
You could see that they banned the DGL-7 rod. That was
Biden
that was
authorized
guaranteed.
Some
Yeah.
100 weapons transfers
You're going to ban another
to
count?
Israel that haven't really, been noted or covered. But that's how the weapons actually get there. Congress may appropriate the money, but then the president has to basically send the weapons. So all that shuts down. And by the way, it is illegal for the U.S. to be transferring weapons and providing military aid to any country which is violating international law and which is interfering with the distribution of humanitarian aid, which Israel is, absolutely. So all that can be shut down on day one. So, there's a better world awaiting. And it starts on day one.
There you have it, folks. So we've got day one plans already, and what Dr. Stein just talked about doesn't even cover, a quarter of what we could be doing on day one, and certainly in the first 100 days, because that's what a lot of people ask. What are you going to do on day one? What are you going to do in the first 100 days? There is so much that we can do, and as soon as we get the website transitioned and our platform up, you will be able to read. We're actually very excited about our platform. I want to pause again, and I do want to say to Dr. Amanda Peterson that we're not only in the primary but for the general also. We as far as I know, we have received that. I also want to give a shout out to Steve Weltzer, who has committed to maxing out over the next couple of months. So we appreciate that. And to Holden Ferguson, who is in the chat, who is going to work hard to raise a couple $1,000s for us. So Holden, we appreciate that very much also. And Steve gets a shout out for his help as a volunteer. If I'm remembering correctly, Steve, you're working for us in New Jersey. So we actually have, if you know anybody in New Jersey, get them to register green. We need people to register green in New Jersey. We need about another 30 or 40 people, I think, to register green in New Jersey. So the way you get on the ballot in various in some states, it varies widely. Sometimes it's a matter of signatures. Sometimes it's a matter of signatures and some money. Sometimes, as in the case of New Jersey, no, actually that's Delaware, right? Delaware, New Jersey is signature gathering, but Delaware, if you're in Delaware, sorry about that, we need the people in Delaware to register green. We need about 30 or 40 more people in Delaware to register green. And just having a certain number of people registered with your party in the state, that gets you on the ballot. So every state has different rules. We have people tracking these rules very, very closely to make sure that we know exactly what the deadlines are, exactly how many signatures we need, exactly how much money that we need to pay, and so on. So I want the people watching us to have the highest confidence that this team knows what it's doing in order to get on the ballot in 50 states. So appreciate that, Steve. Appreciate that, Holden. Appreciate that. Yeah, Jeff, you're right. 800 signatures in New Jersey. Anyway, moving on. Let's get back to some fundraising. I'm going to knock the ask a little bit down right now and say, can anybody, I'm going to cut it in half, can anybody donate $1,500 right now? We have a goal of raising at least $20,000 out of this fundraiser, so I know we are part of the way there. But if we can get $20,000 out of this fundraiser, we will be considering tonight a success. Hopefully, you have the confidence in Dr. Stein that and you know she's not bought by anybody. We don't take any corporate PAC contributions. This is all grassroots funded. Can anybody? So Dave? I see Dave, but I don't see a last name. I see Dave on Seneca is going to mail a check to bring him up to $250. That's fantastic. That money will be matched by the federal government when we get our matching funds process. Can anybody donate $1,500 right now? $1,500 pays for our people on the ground to collect ballot access signatures in Indiana. The threshold in New York, as you know, let's talk about New York for a second. You probably know that New York is the hardest state to get on the ballot in the entire country. A good deal of the funds that we'll be raising will be going to New York, not just Indiana and Illinois, but to New York. 45,000 signatures in New York. This was done by the Democratic New York State Legislature. They changed the rules to increase that number of signatures. And not only that, they gave us a 6-week window to do it. So one, if you are in New York and you want to help out, ballot signature gathering starts on April 16th. We are planning right now a road trip to New York in addition to a road trip to Indiana. We're going to be in Indiana for 3 days. We're going to be in the Chicago area for a day. And then we're going to New York, and we're going to spend 5 or 6 days in New York. We haven't got the schedule fully worked out, but we have people setting up events in the Buffalo area, in the Rochester area. It looks like we're going to be going to Albany, or we're going to be spending a few days in New York City. But we need people on the ground with ready to go on April 16th. Start gathering signatures, 45,000 signatures valid, which means we need to gather about 90,000 signatures. It's a massive lift. It's a huge barrier that the Democratic Party state legislature has set in front of us. But we have to climb it, right? We want to stay on track with a 50-state strategy. If we drop any one of these states, we don't get to move forward saying that we've got a 50-state strategy. Now, we will still be on more ballots than anybody else, and if we're on in 49 states, that will certainly be more than anyone else. But we want to make it 50. Imagine the energy that comes behind saying we got on the ballot in every state in the union and DC, and we go out there and we know that everywhere across the country, people have the option to donate. I mean, to donate. I would like you to donate. The option to vote, right? We have a system right now that pigeonholes you, for the most part, into voting DNR, and we want to give people actual democracy and a third choice on the ballot. And in saying that, we want other people to be on the ballot also. This isn't just about getting the Green Party on the ballot. This is about actual, true representative democracy. So, more power to RFK. He's taken big money to do it, but if he gets on the ballot, that's an option for people. That's democracy. And so we support that. So, $1,500. I haven't been checking the chat right now, but if anybody has donated $1,500, Graham is donating monthly, but can pledge a further $250 this evening. That is fantastic. And let's see here. Okay, I've backed up in the chat. I'm going to ask again, $1,500 going once, going twice. How about $1,000? Can anybody donate $1,000 right now? $1,000. We got 87 people in the chat. $1,000. Let's go to. I'm going to check out the questions right here. We've answered the ones about how do we respond to people about Trump. Dr. Stein, we've got a question about NATO. Would Dr. Stein remove the United States from NATO? NATO would possibly drag the U.S. into a third world war. Can you talk about that in relation to what's going on right now?
Sure. I mean, NATO is, you know, it's kind of our end run around the United Nations when the United Nations doesn't want to go to war, but we do. You know, we kind of bring NATO along as our excuse, and NATO is how we have basically engaged in most of our recent wars, Iraq and Afghanistan, Libya. You know, NATO has replaced effectively the infrastructure for Europe to have kind of a unified mode of operating. It militarized European relations. Following the Second World War, there was supposed to be a kind of an economic forum for cooperation. There's an acronym for it, which I'm not remembering right now. But there is a kind of security association, which is non-militarized for Europe. And NATO was our effort to maintain kind of military influence and control over Europe. So it's been very problematic. It shouldn't exist. There should be a non-militarized framework for European cooperation and integration. There is some of this through the EU, but there's more that was actually proposed following the Second World War. So there are other ways for Europe to cooperate. We should not be pushing Europe to be militarized. And then you have NATO showing up really in Colombia and all over the world, which is not the North Atlantic, which is what the alliance was supposed to be. And let me mention one other thing, and that is that NATO was supposed to be balancing out the power of the Soviet Union. Well, the Soviet Union broke up, and then the Warsaw Pact, which was like the Soviet Union and other countries, that also broke up too. So the whole rationale for NATO to exist was really, you know, it's blown to smithereens, and NATO is really just an excuse for U.S. militarism and for weapon sales, you know, because they largely use U.S. weapons, so it's great for the U.S. weapons industry. So there's no need for NATO to exist, and there are many problems, and it creates a whole lot of momentum for war. So yeah, no, I would be moving to remove the U.S. from NATO. Europe's thing, but that's not for us to be in charge of and militarizing.
may I add?
Go ahead.
Also
Thank you.
with Ukraine right now because NATO's expansion, which was a violation of agreement that they made,
Yeah, we're
they wouldn't
DJL7.
expand it any further, and they neglected that. They completely violated that agreement, and that's why we have the situation we do now because NATO has encircled Russia, and that is poking the bear. And to piggyback on the previous question, you said, what do you say about Trump having a second presidency and losing democracy? Well, it's been said that Trump would bring a civil war in America. Biden would bring World War III. But a Green Party was about people, planet, and peace. So we should be voting for peace, not war. And both of these gentlemen represents those dynamics. And unfortunately, we're not hearing that been explained to us on why we should never make somebody with nuclear weapons have no choice and back them into a corner and humiliate them. Dangerous game that they're playing, and it's unfortunately very profitable. So that's why they won't stop. Because the military-industrial complex, I'm living right here in Washington, D.C., we have the highest concentration of weapon manufacturers and gun lobbyists right here in the nation's capital. And that's why both parties are pretty much in lock and step when it comes to foreign policy because there's a lot of money to be made. Literally, they are literally making a killing. That's why it's endless wars. And I want to make sure that we understand that our military-industrial complex comes with a warning sign from President Eisenhower, Martin Luther King, and countless other people who told us where this was heading. And we have to put a stop to it now before it's too late.
Absolutely, absolutely. So a couple more shout-outs here. Arlene T. Donated $200. Kirk Doherty, $250. Graham Ashton, $250. So let's get back into a little bit of fundraising. We're going to lower it down a little bit. Can we go to $500? Who can dig deep into their pockets right now? We've still got 83 people on the line. I know many of you have donated, but if we can get a $500 donation right now, we'll give you a shout out. Let's go for $500. Anybody with $500 thinking about those critical ballot access requirements in Indiana and New York and Illinois. And let's talk about other places that we're gathering signatures in right now. We are on our way to turning in signatures in Nevada. We look to be on the ballot in Nevada. We have people gathering signatures for us in Missouri right now, or Missouri, if that's your preferred pronunciation. We have people gathering signatures for us in Kansas, in Nebraska, in Maryland. If you're in Maryland, you can find out how to get signatures in Maryland. As Jeanette in the chat says, in Massachusetts, we are gathering signatures. We're gathering signatures in New Hampshire. We're gathering them in New Jersey. We're gathering them in Pennsylvania. So you can see, I mean, we got 50 states. Alaska, don't let me leave out Alaska. We're gathering signatures in Alaska. And many of these states, we are already paying people, like the money that is coming into our campaign is already going to pay people who are gathering signatures in Virginia. I see in the chat, yes, we're gathering signatures in Virginia, in Ohio. We are close to completion in Nevada and Ohio. I think we're over halfway there in Alaska. Some successes that we have had recently. Idaho. You'll see Georgia, our fundraising director. Georgia lives here in Washington State with me. She's actually in Spokane on the eastern half of the state. But Georgia and I met up in Moscow, Idaho, and we spent a few days out there gathering signatures. And it turned out that our efforts, just our personal efforts, pushed us over the edge. We did have some paid signature gatherers in Idaho, but the work that Georgia and I did as volunteers took us over the top. We did clear the hurdle in Idaho. It was actually one of those sort of egregious hurdles because they had shifted the due date up to March 15th, but we got there. It was a big rush to get those signatures in Idaho. We got what we needed in West Virginia. We'll be on the ballot in West Virginia. We cleared the mark in Hawaii. So, you know, as Dr. Stein said, we're about 22 states right now. You know, upcoming, we expect to be turning signatures in shortly in Nevada. It's not quite done yet. I don't want to say that we're there yet, but we're confident we're going to meet the mark in Nevada and Ohio, which will be, and let's put this in context of the Electoral College. Still looking for $500 donations while I'm talking, but let's put this in context of the Electoral College. Like, as Dr. Stein said, we have up to 4 on anyone's ballot, up to 4 pro-genocide campaigns, and there will be 1 anti-genocide campaign. They could split the vote, and in any state, as little as 21% of the vote could get us the Electoral College win in that state. Now, let me put this in the larger context of that all-important 270 votes. Did people know that we are on the ballot in states that total right now 256 electoral votes? Okay, I don't think people know that we are quite that close to 270. But I say that because once we get Nevada and once we get Ohio, that adds another 24. We will be at, what does that do? Let me do the math in my head. That's 280 electoral college votes. So once we get 2 more states in, we potentially have enough states that if we win, we could win the presidency. Nobody's fooling ourselves on this campaign that it isn't going to be a massively heavy list and that the odds aren't stacked against us. But if you want that glimmer of hope that this could be done and this is the time to do it, now is the time to kick in. And if you can kick in $500, that will be amazing. $250 of that will be matched. So I do want to go. If you can't kick in, let's go down to $250. Can anybody do a $250 donation? That the entire thing, assuming you haven't. Kirk just said he donated $750. Kirk, that is fantastic. That is amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kirk.
So, listen, I think it's really important to talk about the potential here, right? When we're talking about 270 electoral college votes and that we're almost at that, and when we're talking about, you know, young voters across the country. Now, was that poll a nationwide poll for 12% for young voters, Dr. Stein, or was that just in a specific state? Because I haven't seen that one.
I think that was national, but I can check that.
That would be incredible if that was national. I know that a Michigan poll a couple of weeks ago talked about the youth vote, and youth being, you know, I'm an older person, I'm 52, so I don't count as youth anymore, but the youth vote counts up to age 34. So voters 18 to 34 are considered the youth vote. So that demographic was 10% for Dr. Stein 3 weeks ago, right? So that is translating now to a national youth vote. Imagine the power of young people in this election to say, we've got somebody to vote for, we've got somebody who represents a future that is livable for us, because I think a lot of people in power right now, you know, and I don't say this to be ageist, but you know, we've got people sitting in office right now who come from a different generation. They're 70, 80 years old. They come from wealthy backgrounds. They come from lobbyist backgrounds, and they are making the rules based on a mindset in the 60s, right? But that is not our future, right? The older generations, I'm sad to say, having been in control, have left us with not a great prospect for the future. And young people are recognizing this. Young people are done with war. Young people are done with being denied housing and health care and working for, in this economy, $7.25 an hour, as our friend Holden in the chat said. You know, working for minimum wage in some states is $7.25, right? So this is an administration that represents the future that young people want, a peaceful future. a cooperative future,
3 years.
We don't have that. We're not going to get
3 years
that with the Democratic or the Republican parties. They are both absolutely hopeless on this front. So we want to secure that right now in 2024, especially with climate change looming over us right now and really threatening the stability of the entire global environment. We've got to put everything we can behind this. So, and as Kelly said in the chat, uncommitted, right? How many people voted uncommitted? Was it around 100,000 voters in Michigan? Voted
this is so
uncommitted?
dumb.
36% of St. Louis.
Keep faking it.
People and marginalized people showing up and saying, we don't want this anymore. This is not, you're not setting us up for good things, DNR, and in this case, especially Biden, right? We are demanding a better future. So I do have a question for Dr. Stein. From the Q&A, it says, as a third-party candidate, how do you plan to overcome the significant institutional barriers and partisan polarization to effectively implement your policy agenda and bring about meaningful change of elected president? And I just want to preface this that the uncommitted vote is really a lead-in to the answer to that question, I think. So, Dr. Stein?
Well, that's right. And let me add to that, reporting about the uncommitted vote. If you look at Michigan, portion of the electorate now, because that was like somewhere around 500,000 people at least, so 100,000 who were uncommitted, but way more than that who were like, so there's potentially a huge number of voters here that are voting with their feet, that are not supporting the genocide agenda, that could be won over. And so there's a lot of people who could be mobilized. And this then fits in with the whole strategy of being the organizer in chief. When Barack Obama came into office, he got elected, he broke a lot of barriers, he had a huge grassroots movement that was very invested in hope and change. But then when Obama got into office, what was the first thing he did? He appointed Larry Summers as the Secretary of the Treasury. Larry Summers, who under Bill Clinton had basically implemented the Wall Street agenda and, got rid of Glass-Steagall and, just created the Wall Street rule and strengthened the commitment to Wall Street and the Wall Street economy and all that. So it was clear which way Barack Obama was actually going to govern on, even before he was elected, when he was just first floating who his appointments might be. I'm sorry, he was elected, but he was not yet installed as president. It was clear that, sorry, folks, you may have expected hope and change, but get ready for hopelessness and more of the same, basically, which is what he was about. But the other thing he did was basically tell people that they were done, that he didn't need them anymore, and they should just kind of go home and, have brunch or something. And in our case, we will only get elected. We would only come to office because we have a strong grassroots movement, which we are in the process of building right now, which you are helping to build by being here tonight and by, helping to make this campaign strong. So we would continue that movement, and everyone should be on notice that if we succeed, we need you. There will be no going home, because we're going to need you to be holding town hall meetings, to be bird dogging your legislators. And if we have this strong grassroots movement, we are going to be electing, Kamon Freeman. We're going to be electing Jason Call. We're going to be electing Glino and many other really wonderful green candidates who will be carrying our agenda into Congress. So it will be a fight in so many words, but if we get elected, we clearly have the momentum to succeed at that fight every step of the way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Words of inspiration right there. So we're gonna wrap this up in about 11 minutes on the hour. I want everybody to know that Dr. Stein has been grinding at it with the interview circuit over the last week. She did 4 interviews yesterday. 2 of them were public. You can find them on YouTube. And you're wondering, what are Dr. Stein's answers for this and that. These shows that Dr. Stein is going on are covering an incredibly wide range of topics. There is some repetition from show to show, but they always hit on a variety of different. So, the Vanguard podcast, Dr. Stein did on Monday. I do want to say, if you have questions about what happened with Dr. West and the Green Party, that is, you've got your answers on that podcast. We don't need to say anything about that here, but Dr. Stein was incredibly concise and informative about everything that transpired with Dr. West back in August through October with the Green Party, and how she ended up being the Green Party, I will say, presumptive nominee right now, why she stepped back into the race. A number of well, I only caught the last part of James Fauntleroy's show. He goes by JB Font out there. He's part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. Great interview. And then my friends Lila Charles Lee and Pat Cody, who are in Los Angeles and San Francisco respectively, and they do the Punch Up Pod. And that was a really fantastic conversation. I know that was starting at 8 o'clock at night for Dr. Stein after having done 3 interviews already, and just so much energy and passion. And I really hope that you feel here tonight the passion that Dr. Stein brings to this mission. Like, this is our mission collectively, but Dr. Stein is such an amazing spokesperson. And what is the importance of having somebody like Dr. Stein in? Oh, Tao Z. Tao has donated $500. Thank you so much. And if I've missed anybody, please put it again in the chat there, and then I will shout it out. Thank you so much, Tao. But going back to that vision, Molly WC, $250. Thank you so much. The vision of somebody in the White House like Dr. Stein is the leadership, right? And the leadership and the mobilization of people to get behind the changes that are needed, to harass, right? You harass and harangue your elected officials to put the policies in place. The vision, Dr. Stein can't do everything, but she can bring the vision to the table, and that's what is sorely needed right now. So I'm going to hand it back to you, Dr. Stein, if there's anything else that you want to say.
Let's see. I want to just note from Georgia that, again, just a huge thank you to everyone. And I see so many contributions coming in. I can't keep up with them to say all of the thank yous, but just take this as one very big thank you for everything that people are donating tonight. And I also want to say that while we didn't call out, $100 donations, can you give 100 or can you give 50? I just want to underscore that every donation is a complete game changer. So if you've been holding off to wait for your category, your comfort zone, and you can throw $100 into the pot, you're a game changer. And likewise, if you can't do 100, but you can do 50, that would just be totally awesome. And I see a note here from Georgia that we're just $400 short of 8,000, which would close us out tonight at just really a very wonderful jumping off point for this 30,000 that we've got to raise this week. So if you can throw $100 into the hat here or $50, you would just be a game changer tonight. And
Lisa D just threw in $50 today. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you so much for that. All right, great. for another 50. Well, that brings us down to 350 that we need to raise here.
$50 from Bennett.
Out.
Are we going to do this?
Bennett got us another 50. Thank you so much. We got 300. Can we close the gap here? While you're thinking about that, I want to tell you something that totally blew me away today. Today, I had an interview with Haaretz. Does anybody recognize who Haaretz is? This is like a progressive Israeli journal, one of the foremost journals, and it covers a spectrum. So there are some real anti-Zionists and some Zionists in it, but it is Israeli. So I was really like dreading this interview and really kind of preparing for the worst. And it kind of blew me away because the journalist was saying that, and he's like the guy who covers American politics. And what he said was that people are really interested in this campaign and really want to hear what you have to say. And then we went on to have this really amazing discussion about, how we can fix this, how the adults in the room need to stand up, and stop genocide. Today, we have to stop the genocide now. And it's not just that, if we're going to make a lasting ceasefire, a lasting peace agreement, we have to end apartheid and occupation and ethnic cleansing. And I was just so shocked that he was really interested in that and, really wanted to help explain my point of view as a Jew about why, Zionism, in my view, is anti-Jewish, which is what the super Orthodox rabbis also say, that Zionism is anti-Jewish because it violates the basic tenets, the so-called the 10 commandments of the Old Testament, the 10 commandments. And so these rabbis were asked, well, why is Zionism anti-Jewish? And the rabbi answered, because it's against Judaism to steal and to kill, which is like implicit in Zionism, which is stealing the land of other people. And it's been genocide in the making, and all that has to be fixed. But I was just so heartened to hear that he was really interested in covering our perspective and how could we begin to make peace. I expressed the point of view that it's not only the Palestinians who are being slaughtered here, but this also bodes really bad for the Jews that are, in historic Palestine, that are in Israel right now. They don't have a future under this current approach as well, which is just mobilizing incredible hostility. And Israel, along with the US, has become, really the pariah states. And Israel doesn't stand alone here. It stands with the US. And our job is to take our government, under our democratic control and put an end to all of this. And yeah, that's a problem for Israel, but it's also a problem here for America. And we need the adults in the room to take charge, and get the bullies in the schoolyard, which is what American foreign policy is about. It's all about full spectrum dominance, which is a fancy way of saying that we will dominate all areas of the world in all dimensions of potential competition. We will dominate it. And that's what we've been doing. And we've been, murdering millions of people here in the process. And that's what the problem is in Israel. The problem is not just Israel. It's that it is the unsinkable battleship for the US of A. But it was so heartening to me to see that, like, there are people in Israel that are really interested in our understanding of this. And, I asked if he could put us in touch with some of these peace groups in Israel that are advocating, for an end to Zionism, from the inside. So I'm just really
I'll just say that I reached out to him today, and he's going to get me a list of organizations tomorrow, and we can start doing some outreach there. And that is so amazing. I've just got a note here that we got over $8,000. Beth, I don't know how much you donated, but I also Donald got us to 8,500.
Man. Oh, man.
This is so fantastic. Pete and Anthony, David Swift. We are now. I'm being told right here. We are over $8,500 right now. So this is amazing. I would like to, Kimon, you've been so patient while we've been sitting here talking about raising money and Dr. Stein taking the floor. But I would like to offer our special guest, Kimon Freeman, who is running in DC. Kimon, if you want to give a little shout out to your race and then kind of close us out with some words of wisdom, we're going to wrap this thing up. This has been amazing, everybody. I'm going to stop talking and hand it over to Kimon. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you again for this opportunity to speak to the doctor in chief here, and thank you for everyone who has contributed to our campaign. It's a joy to see the outpouring of support. I even had a few drop some coins to our campaign. That's Freeman, the number 4 Congress.com. So thank you very much for those people that did that. But I want to back up real quick because we said something about the politics of fear. And when Dr. Stein quoted our beloved Alice Walker, when we said that the greatest power is convincing people they don't have any, I had the opportunity to interview Alice Walker in Cuba this past February. And I asked her, now mind you, this is a woman who had crosses burnt in her yard by the Klan in Mississippi in the 60s. Okay, just want to put it in context. And I asked her, what was the greatest obstacle she had to overcome? She said, fear. Mm-hmm. So I just want to put that out there. So when we talking about, Trump or Biden, we got to save democracy. We cannot operate from fear. We have to actually do what we want. We have to fight for what we want, not what we are afraid of. My greatest first lady is not Michelle Obama. My greatest first lady is Eleanor Roosevelt. And she said that when you face your fears, you gain the confidence to face everything else, that you must face the one thing that you're afraid of. And I think that is where we are at right now. That's where we are right now. And we must face our fears. We must step up into the unknown. And if Australia can have 50 different political parties, surely America can have more than 2. So I hope that gives enough ammunition to all our supporters to fight the good fight, to have those dinner table debates, because that's where the revolution is going to take place, across the dinner tables, and make sure that this point is expressed explicitly. And it's not just, it's out of reach. It is actually in view. And the system that we now have is unsustainable. And I'm going to do my part here for the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., and I hope you guys will support us. And I look forward to when Dr. Stein comes back to D.C. and we can have an even bigger outpouring her next time here. And our campaign kicks off officially next Thursday, April the 4th, which is the anniversary of Martin Luther King. And it's not just the anniversary of his assassination, but it's also the anniversary of the speech that got him killed, which was the Beyond Vietnam speech, the anti-war speech, when he spoke out against the military-industrial complex. And he gave that speech April 4th, 1967. Wow. And he was assassinated on April 4th, 1968, to communicate to everyone that this was the real red line here. And for those who don't know, Stokely Carmichael, also known as Kwame Ture, had an office in D.C. on U Street. And the way information traveled then is that he got the call. So before the real Robert Kennedy got and made that speech on the TV cameras, before Walter Cronkite or whoever news anchors announced it, Stokely Carmichael got a phone call. And so he organized the first, I don't want to call it a riot, I call it a rebellion, even though Martin Luther King said a riot is the voice of the unheard. But he organized the first rebellion, and it was launched right here in D.C. on 14th and U. The first MLK rebellion started in Washington, D.C., the first city to rebel. And it was at that intersection of 14th and U. There's a plaque there commemorating this. And our actual campaign kickoff party is happening at 14th and U. And I just want to acknowledge that because we're here to explicitly express the radical side of Martin Luther King. And shout out to the artist Moo Fresh, who is supporting our campaign and making sure people come out. And we might want to bring more artists into this fold as we go forward and try to reach more people. And finally, let me say is that the greatest power is convincing people they don't have any, but we have to use that power. We have to use that power. And one of the things that as is a power that's been untapped is the fact that most of our college kids go to school in bigger cities, away from home. They actually qualify for residency in those cities that they go to school in, and they can vote in those cities. And we should register those people because they are, as you said, 18, and they are overwhelmingly, by and large, progressive. And I think that that's an underutilized power that we need to tap into. Here in the nation's capital, we have over 80,000 college kids from 20 different universities, and our campaign is targeting them for new voters. So I hope that will resonate with this campaign here, and we can all celebrate a victory for the people, the planet, and peace come November.
Love it.
Amazing.
Amen to that.
It is 5 minutes past the hour. That was such an inspiring speech to see us to the end of our fundraiser. Thank you so much to everybody who has donated, everybody who's listening, everybody who's going to get out there in the streets and collect signatures, who's going to talk to their friends and their family and build this campaign. We are going to take this all the way to the White House, everybody. I feel it. I feel it. And thanks again to Dr. Stein for being such an amazing standard bearer for this movement in this moment. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Kamo. Thanks, everybody. All right.
Okay. So thank you, everybody in the room. For those of you on the East Coast, we can let's go get some rest. I know I need it. I'm very close to hitting my own my own goals for my workplace. So if I can do a little bit more work tonight, then I can put my full day into the campaign tomorrow. So I'm very, very close. Thank you, everybody.
So,
I want to be looked at as a regular person. I want people to come to me with questions. I want people to give me their ideas. I want to be able to have, because when he came out with that announcement, there was a bunch of us in the group chat. We were like, what is this? Who passed away in Russian prison, and he called him a political prisoner and held him a hero when he was like not. So I'm disappointed in him from that. But when it came to the Green Party, he was not interested in actually building 50 states, and he was not interested in actually building the infrastructure, which is very interesting because now he started his own party, and you're going to have to do 50 times the more work than what the Green Party already had.
Okay. Let me actually tell you, because I was actually working with him, and I've worked with other people. Like I know his campaign manager now, Edwin De Jesus. We're not really cool, okay, because they sold out, and I know, okay. But the fact of the matter is that 14 separate states came out, right? Yeah, and when you listen to the People's Party, if this was another country, people would immediately see the problem. There's no elected state leaders that you hear from. It's one celebrity or another. They're
El Medea, what's up? How come? What about Nick Brown and all the sexual assault allegations? What about past the board resigning, Medea? What about past the board resigning? I emailed everybody. You don't know anything what they're talking about, Medea, right? She said it live, right?
Wait 5 to 6 weeks.
And taking on the stuff hand by hand instead of sitting